Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to talk about some specific considerations for warming up for bodyweight exercises. Now typically when most people think about bodyweight exercises, they think about regressions that are so far towards almost the left end. So I'm talking about stuff like bodyweight squats, which depending on your mobility might still be an advanced exercise for you. So people don't really give consideration to warming up for those because it's almost like they do the bodyweight versions of the barbell exercises to warm up for the barbell stuff. But when we're talking about higher level skills, they involve greater levels of strength, coordination and mobility. That's when we need to take a little bit more of a specific approach. And if we're doing this, for example, for barbell exercises, we can apply a similar approach, but most people don't think about it in that way. So the first thing to think about is which muscles are likely going to be involved in the activity you're about to do. Sounds simple, I know, but there's not much point, there's better ways of warming up for, say, doing something like a back lever than, for example, jogging a lap of a football field. So although we very much still want to improve muscle temperature, because we know this is going to have a positive impact on force production, we probably want to get the muscles warm, which are going to specifically help us with the activity. So for example, if I'm going to be doing a warm-up for the upper body, I want to get the upper body warm. Now this is just one way of doing it. I've got a thick band here, and all I'm going to go through is just getting the shoulders warm. So for the back lever, as an example, I'm going to need to get my hands used to being behind my body. So it makes sense to start warming up my shoulders. So all I'm doing here is just getting my hands used to being around the back of the body. I'm also just getting a little bit of rotation around my mid-back. Again, as structures become tight around the front of the body, so for example pecs, lats, when we're doing something like desk work, that's going to then weaken muscles around the back of the body. So hopefully my shoulders are starting to feel a little bit warmer. I'm then going to start starting to think about switching on muscles which might become either weak or perhaps a little bit inactive, for want of a better word, with daily life. So for example, if I'm at a desk, muscles at the tight get weak, muscles at the back, muscles at the front are going to get tightened up, muscles at the back are going to be weak. So I've warmed up my shoulders in terms of muscle temperature. I'm now going to perform some specific exercises to get the muscles at the back used to working. So for example, if I tuck my shoulders back and down, pull the band into me, I can then feel these muscles at the back starting to work. For an added element of control, I can get used to pulling the band back and then coming overhead and then coming behind my body. So I'm now starting to get just a helicopter going overhead. So I'm now starting to get used to the muscles firing both in terms of retraction, so shoulder blades coming together, hands going overhead whilst being stable for the midsection, and then hands coming around the back of the body. Now of course you can do this from standing, you can do this with a lighter band. The subtle thing people might miss is that shoulders are coming down and away from the ears. I'm pulling the band together so I can feel my mid and lower back working hard. Then as I come overhead, I'm avoiding arching through my back. Okay, now that's just one example. So that is my shoulders starting to feel a little bit warmer. Again, the more mobile you are and the more used to doing these kinds of exercises your body is, the less of a warm-up you're going to need. The next thing I'm going to think about is what positions does my body need to get in to perform the movement I'm trying to perform. So for example, with a back lever, my hands are going to be behind my body, my wrists are going to be facing up, so it makes sense to mobilize in the position that I'm about to get into. So one of my favorite stretches, which I'll link out in the video in the top left or top right, is very simply my hand is wrapping around the band, my wrist is pointing up just like it would be in a back lever, and all I'm going to do here is pull my shoulder away from my ear and try and get my wrist pulling down, because that's where it's gonna, get my hand used to pulling towards my hip. So rather than letting my hand stay up here, I'm gonna pull my shoulder back and down, pull my wrist towards my hip, because that's what I'm going to do in a back lever, and then I can just start to play about with areas that feel restricted. So for example, I can start to twist out a little bit. I might start to feel this more at the front of the shoulder, or indeed at the tricep. I'm also feeling a little bit on my neck. That's absolutely fine. Again, it's useful to find out which spots that you are feeling particularly restricted in. So I'm just going to get into a half kneeling position now. So now I'm starting to bring more muscle groups into play. But the main focus here, just like it is in a back lever, is pulling my hand down towards my hip. I can change my torso position depending on where I feel restricted. But I'm mobilizing in the position I'm going to be in my chosen activity. Again, you can choose to perform these from standing. I'm just performing them from a half kneeling position for the sake of making sure I stay in shot. So band is behind my shoulder and wrist is facing up. I'm going to amend my foot position a little bit. Again, this side for me feels a bit more restricted, so I might choose to spend a bit more time here. Again, hand is facing up, hands pulling towards the hips. I'm just playing about with different body positions, being aware of where my neck is, being aware of where other areas of my body might need a little bit more attention. So we've warmed up the specific muscle groups. We've activated any potentially weak muscles or muscles that are going to be needing to be firing when we're in our movement. We've warmed up specifically by mobilizing in the positions we plan to use later. Now the next thing we're going to do is something that most people won't appreciate if you're predominantly used to only barbell work, but when we, for example, go for our back squats, we're not going to just jump straight into the working weight we're going to use that day, unless of course we are so new to back squats that the working weight is the empty bar, or indeed so close to the empty bar that it's not worth spending ages performing additional unnecessary warm-up sets. So now with bodyweight work, we are going to use an easier version of the exercise we're about to perform. So if we look at something like a back lever, we're then going to develop our patterning, or indeed practicing a similar variation of the movement that doesn't quite carry the same strength demands. So for a back lever, we might do something like a skin the cat. So skin the cat is still going to involve my hands being behind my body. It's still going to get me used to pulling my hands towards my hips, which is a key factor for our back lever work. And it's also going to introduce a bigger strength requirement in a position that is similar to what we're trying to do. So before, we've worked on the mobility requirement of making sure we're forming those connections, we're building mobility in a specific pattern to what we're trying to achieve. Now we're making sure that our strength pattern is similar to what we're trying to achieve. So with my skin the cat as an example, show you here from the side, I'm going to feed my legs up and over. I'm getting my hands facing the ceiling, getting used to pulling up towards my hips. I'm going to lower down as much as my body can tolerate. I'm now pulling my hands towards my hips. And for an added mobility bonus, when I come back through, I can push my head through my hands just to get a little bit more overhead mobility. So this is an easier version of a back lever. We're getting used to the same patterns. We're getting used to loading the hands being behind the body. We're getting used to, for example here, my body weight is completely on the floor. I've kind of unloaded the hands a little bit for the sake of the video. But now I'm going to pull back through. And again, if I want to progress the strength requirements, I just lengthen out my body shape a little bit more. So for example, if I feel like I need a few more reps of the movement, that's fine. If I feel like, especially in bodyweight movements, that the easier version or the warm-up version of the movement I'm working towards is too easy, I can start to pick a harder variation, or indeed I can make that variation harder. So notice on that last rep I started to lengthen out my body at certain positions just to increase the strength requirements of that movement. So this would be equivalent to, let's say we only have a certain amount of load for our 100 kilo back squat or whatever. Let's say, I don't know, we've got two 20 kilo plates and, for example, a 60 kilo back squat is too far away from our 100, but we've only got the 20 kilo plates. We might need to make that 60 kilo back squat somewhat harder So it's somewhat similar to the demands of the 100 kilo squat. So to summarize everything, raise muscle temperature, but do it in a way that is raising the temperature of the muscles that are specific to the activity you're using. Try and do this in a way that is killing two birds with one stone. So for example, if I'm doing a back lever, it makes sense that my pulse raiser involves hands going behind the body. Make sure we mobilize in the positions that we are trying to achieve. So again, back lever, the hand is behind the body and usually with the palms facing up. So it makes sense to get mobile in that position. Then introduce a variation that includes a bit of a strength element in that position that you're going to be working on for the full movement. And finally, gradually increase the strength or the load involved in these warm-up exercises so it's similar to that you're trying to achieve. Thank you very much for listening. Catch you again in the next video. If you found this useful, like, share, subscribe with someone who you think would find this useful. Todd Davidson, P2P Coaching, giving you the platform to perform.